If you took on any role within a dysfunctional family growing up, or still even in your life today, then this podcast is definitely for you. Today, I speak with Lauren Smallcomb, who is a certified mind and body practitioner. She pulls from her 15-year experience as a registered nurse, nutritional therapist to help people rewire out of dysregulation and chronic symptoms into joy, self-trust, and whole body strength. She's also the author of the book that you can get your hands on now called Golden Child, My Descent to Scapegoat and Rise to Freedom. This episode was a real eye-opener for me. I'm not sure I've ever sat down in this much length with somebody who's lived a large proportion of their life as a golden child and is able to talk so openly about it. Lauren has ended up becoming the scapegoat within her family, so many of you will resonate with what she talks about there. But what I find really super interesting is how she's able to articulate what it was like to be the golden child, what that meant, the hardships that brought, the impact that it had on her and her siblings, how that evolved as she became the scapegoat, and her relationship with her family. Honestly, this is really, really informative. And I'm not just saying this because I don't just say things like this, but by the end of the episode, I could not wait to get my hands on the book and read it in full. You're going to learn as much as I did from this episode, I'm sure. So sit back, listen in, and get ready to learn more about what it's like to grow up in dysfunction. Dysfunction is everywhere, in our families, in our cultures, and in our systems. And this is Dysfunctional, the podcast that helps you name the things that most people can't or won't see. Let's call it out, break it down, and maybe even start a bloody revolution. So, Lauren, I am very excited for this podcast ahead. How are you doing, first of all?
I am doing really well. I'm pumped to be talking to you. I was telling you earlier that I love your energy. I love what you bring to the space. And I was thrilled when you were excited about having me on the pod. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, well, look, with the release of the book that's coming up that we're going to get into talk about, the name of the book, which is interesting, really, when you look at the name of the book being Golden Child, and
Yep.
I often talk about scapegoat, right?
Right.
And I know that we've sort of connected over that conversation, so I can't wait to get into that. But before we kind of go down that path, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview about who you are today and how you got to be that
Okay.
person?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a hard question to answer at all. I love it. I am a mind body practitioner. I'm a mom, I'm a partner, and how I got to this place now. I live in Thailand. I'm an expat in Thailand. Sometimes we say we're immigrants in Thailand because America is just not the greatest place to live right now. So Thailand is such a refuge to us. It's a
How long have you
We've
been
been
there?
here 8 years, and
Wow,
yeah, we
okay.
we don't see going back. Our kids are teenagers, so we might go back once they're all in the States and having grandbabies and stuff like that. But we've just found such a home here. Found like so much hospitality and graciousness. The Thai people are so kind and welcoming and gracious, and great food, great weather. I mean, you really can't beat it. So now that everyone's like jealous, I'm sorry. But my journey has been really interesting. I was a golden child, and I also became a golden child in my faith system. So I was part of a high control religious group and also a high control family group. And they perfectly bred me to be this projection of goodness for both of them. And so I actually ended up coming to Thailand as a missionary, as a Christian missionary, to help other missionaries here through member care and counseling and things like that. My husband is a counselor. And my husband and I ended up coming face to face with a lot of these systemic problems of power and control in the church and in missions and that whole world. And we ended up leaving that, as well as unfortunately leaving my family system. So that's right.
One. So sorry, just when you came, there's a couple of things I want to pick up on, but the first thing, when you came to Thailand 8 years ago, that was as a missionary that you
Yeah,
first
it
came.
was. It's hard to say, Josh. I'm not gonna lie, because it's a part of our journey that we're a little bit like, oh, that's so. just have some kind of feeling about it. But that's part of our story. So that is how we came.
Yeah, it's part of the story. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's incredible. And just for people that might not know that are listening, trying to think of the people that are listening to this, can you just explain what it means to be a missionary, a Christian missionary? What does that mean? An overview of what that meant when you were going
I
to
mean,
Thailand.
like actually my husband and I went to lunch today and we were just talking about like being less ashamed of that part of our story because at the time we thought we were doing the best thing for the world. We thought we were responding
Yeah.
and bringing the love of God to Thailand as if God's love isn't already in Thailand or whoever's love. But we thought at the time that's what we would be doing. And primarily through supporting other missionaries. There's actually a lot of missionaries in Thailand because Thailand's a very open Buddhist country. There's not persecution. There's not, you can be whoever you want in Thailand. So a lot of Westerners come here and try to advance Christianity. And that's what missionaries do. And that is what we were kind of adjacent to doing. We were doing member care. So supporting their mental health because of course there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of mental health problems in that system and in missionaries. There's a lot of stressors and things that get swept under the rug, so we were here to kind of help them be more healthy.
Right.
Yeah, we
So go on.
just we left that when we decided to leave missions and just actually have a for-profit business. Go figure. That was like such a scary thing to us because our whole lives we had been in volunteer work and we had been in ministry work and we had always thought that was like the better way. But then when we realized, oh, we actually have the freedom to like use our skills and our training and our education to have a business. So we started a private practice here in Thailand called Flourish Therapy, and we see people all over the world. It's a mind body practice. I know we have that in common. And it's amazing to actually just be a normal person and just work a job like the rest of the world and not feel like you have to save everyone.
Mm. Yeah, because the reason I asked about because there'll be people that don't understand what like being a
Yeah,
missionary is, right? And obviously, when you're in any kind of faith-based system, right, and you believe that what is worked for you, it's a very no, it's like framed as a very noble thing to go do, right? It's to
absolutely.
like go and share with everybody what you believe has been right for you. Let's, if we can, just rewind a little bit, or a lot, perhaps. That was 8 years ago when you came to Thailand. You talked about being a golden child within your
Yes.
family. So, did you grow up were your family religious when you grew up? And what did it mean to be a golden child within your family?
So, this piece might be a little bit outside of your audience, but who knows? People might be interested. I actually grew up Catholic, and my dad was an alcoholic, and he was not able to break his addiction really until, quote, God like saved him, and then he was able to stop
Wow.
his addiction. Unfortunately, he didn't go to groups or recovery. He just stopped through religion, and what happened at that point was we ended up leaving the Catholic Church because my parents didn't feel like they were um, getting their spiritual needs met in the Catholic Church. So they ended up going to this probably isn't as big in the UK, but in America, the um, evangelical sect of Christianity is really, really big. And
I know
okay.
it. I know it. I know it well,
Okay,
actually. Yeah.
cool.
I did my stint in there when I
You
got
did.
sober. Jello for a sec.
It's a real
Yeah.
open
Yeah.
door
Funny enough.
for recovering addicts. It's a big welcoming place because it's a great story, right? It's a beautiful
Yeah.
thing to be free. So that is kind of what they saw themselves being saved by, not only spiritually, but their family was saved. They didn't have to get divorced. All of these things were put back together, and they poured all of their everything, loyalty, devotion, everything into that system. So I was about 12 when we left the Catholic Church and went to an evangelical church, and it kind of just put faith and spirituality on like steroids. It was no longer just, oh, we go once a week and like we try to honor God with our choices or whatever. It became this whole thing there. Wednesday night, Friday night, Sunday night, youth group, children's church, all of these different ministries and things we were involved with. And so the combination of my family already having me be the golden child, I was the third born, and I was born right after a scapegoat child. So my sister was the original scapegoat of the family, mostly because of her personality, really. A lot of these roles that we're born into, they go with the personality of the person, and then it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that the family forces you into it. So unfortunately, she was a scapegoat. She was always testing the boundaries and living outside the box. She was an artist, she was a thinker, and she had all of these characteristics that my parents didn't know what to do with. So she was in a scapegoat role pretty early on. And then when I was born, my temperament was like more compliant and easygoing and deferring. And so I was naturally put into, oh, well, you're the projection of goodness in our family now. You are the golden child. And then just going to the church and being part of the evangelical church kind of compounded all of that, and I became that role for the family system and the faith system.
Wow. Do you do you remember do you remember the change? Like you're talking, let me try and frame what I'm saying here. You're talking retrospectively of looking back that you were the golden child and then like you became even more the golden child. Do you remember what that felt like as a 12-year-old? Do you remember at 12 years old? Obviously at 12, well, maybe not obviously, but I'm assuming obviously. You're not thinking, oh, I'm the golden child and now this is supercharged as a golden child. Can you remember through the eyes of the 12-year-old what like how life changed? Like, did it feel like life got better when your dad got sober and went to the evangelical church, or do you feel like it got harder, worse, different?
Oh, it got 1,000 times better. And that is where my own personal devotion came from, because I also believed, well, God saved us from all this. Like, we have my family back together. I'm no longer living in two different houses. My dad isn't yelling as much. He's calmer. He's going to church and praying. Like, it basically gave me all of these things that I wanted. So it was real easy for me to give my devotion back. I definitely didn't know I was the golden child. That was just recent and definitely retrospectively, oh, this is what this all is. But I just remember the divide between my siblings getting bigger at that point. And this is something, yeah, I
Wow.
think these systems, narcissistic slash dysfunctional family systems, whatever you want to call them, they do not typically set up kids to be close and intimately connected. There tends to be a lot of animosity and jealousy and bitterness. And that was certainly the case in my family system. So once we started going to this new church, that even got worse. They were kind of middle school. They weren't super interested. They're like, what is all this crap? But I was younger still, and I was like, let's do this. Let's go all in to the church. And became it just put a barrier between us, like a bigger gulf between us, where they were not super into the church, but me and my parents were super in. And it just cemented those roles further and further. And unfortunately led to, us not having close relationships in years where it would have been really nice to be close to siblings. But they kind of hated me for my religiosity and self-righteousness, is what they would call it.
Do you believe that you were being self-righteous at that time?
In hindsight,
Yeah,
um,
of course. You didn't know at the time,
yeah, I
right? Yeah.
definitely was really hurt by that, because I was just trying to like love God and love people. And I didn't think that I was, but definitely. And I've looked back at some letters that I wrote and I'm like, holy shit, you sound so that like, and it makes sense. Like, I try to have compassion on those parts of me that I want to cringe about, because I was told you are better in essence. I was told you are more right, you are more holy, you are more pure. Even your motivations are better than specifically than your scapegoated sister. And so I was fed that so early on that it became,
As a
yeah,
child, of
yeah.
course. You're just a child. You're doing as you're told. You're like, yeah, of course. What? And you were explicitly, as a 12-year-old child, told you're better than your sibling.
Oh, that's what's always so
Maybe
interesting.
not that clear
Yeah.
sentence, but was it quite explicitly implied that because they weren't uh, sort of buying into the church in that way, that you were better
Yeah,
and
and
stuff.
then all
Yeah.
their choices. Like I was doing good in school and making good friends and having good choices and serving people and loving people, being a good girl, like how the society conditions girls to be. Like I was doing all those things, and she had a loud mouth and an opinion and preferences, and she wasn't going to shut up. And she also didn't think our family system was perfect like I did. So I was also upholding this belief. The golden children often uphold like the family is really good. Look at how good we are. Whereas the scapegoat's like, hell no, the family is a mess. I see what's going on here. The scapegoat kind of carries that burden of knowing
Mm,
in real depth, like really seeing the problems, you know, and that's why they're scapegoated, because they're the ones who see them and they kind of call it out in their own different ways.
mm. Was Do you remember struggling? Because at the moment, what you're describing, right? And I'm trying to sort of purposely come dumb, for want of a better term here, right? Um, but I'm genuinely curious as well. Um, when you think about the scapegoat, it's quite easy to describe what their experience was like, right? You just described it, in that they kind of see what's going on. They're more, able. I was going to say willing, but it's probably a better word to say they're more able, because of who they are, to call out the dysfunction. And so as a result, they're scapegoated. But obviously, if the system is dysfunctional, it's having a negative impact on you as a child,
Mhm.
right? Like long term, if you're living in that dysfunction, if you've created the safety, do you remember ever having any inkling that something wasn't right, or that like any difficulty, or did being the golden child really actually keep you so safe that childhood felt great?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because it's like, how could you not see, right? If a family is that dysfunctional that they need these roles, how can you not see? But honestly, it was such an insular bubble around me that it kind of reminds me of like when people come out of cults and you're like, how didn't you feel like the vibes were off? And they're just like, I didn't. You know, some of them did, but whatever. That's a common trend. And I think that was the case with me. I was, the problems that were there were the narratives I was told they were. So the problem was my sister just wouldn't comply. She wouldn't cooperate. She wouldn't go in line with, you know, what needed to be done. She wouldn't be helpful. So she was clearly called as the problem, not the system. And I believed it. In a strange way, though, I was her emotional like thermometer and emotional attuner. So this is why peeling back the layers and listening to each individual story is so important, because there's patterns, but there's no like one way, right? Um, I
Yeah.
ended up being very emotionally available and attuned to her. And she would put me in tons of compromising situations and on purpose, to expose me to things, bring me places I shouldn't have been. I was 3 years younger than her, and do all these things. And I never, ever, ever told on her because the narrative that I had heard, the belief that I had internalized was keep your sister happy, keep your sister happy, as if it was like tattooed on my arm. And so I knew that they needed me to keep her happy. And that meant not telling on her because then there would be animosity and strife between my parents and her, and they had enough to deal with. And so I had this really weird, like enmeshed role with her up until adulthood, where I was the emotional attuner and my own needs and my own um, story was kind of not valid, because this is the thing, the golden child gets something and then gives something. They're often given material goods. Like I say, I was in a golden cage and I didn't know I was in a cage.
Mm.
So you're given all these things, you're prioritized in all these ways, and then you have to give something. And what I had to give was my authenticity and my emotional needs. Like those things were not met by my family largely. Um, but in the meantime, I had to be meeting those needs for the other family members, largely my sister and my dad too, kind of emotionally attuning to him and his alcoholism, and kind of meeting those needs of being a really good girl so that he had something to be proud of in his family.
Yeah. Because in that respect, what I think's interesting about the golden child is that, and that was in some ways what I was pointing to with my last couple of questions, was that um, it's almost like your pain is delayed because you're playing a role as a child and the role works, right? So you're able to have some kind of a relationship with your sister in that, but it's all at the expense of yourself, as ultimately the relationship within your family as a whole, right? With your parents, it's like as long as you are good, nice, and do the right thing, then you're going to receive love, right? There's no autonomy in that. It's the same as the relationship with your sister, right? That's if if you have learned from your family that the way that you are likable and lovable is to be nice, acceptable, pleasing, and keep the person happy, then you approach every relationship like that.
That's
But
right.
but when but when you're a child, if the only relationships that you really have are your siblings and your parents, as long as you're keeping up the golden child
Facade. Yeah.
way facade, yeah, then then you're okay. So when do you first remember? I mean, like, can you think of an age where you first remember um, starting to realize that something was wrong? And you have to ignore the bowels going on in the background, by the way. The food truck's just turned up here, if you can hear them. It will stop in a moment.
Is it like an
Um,
ice cream truck? What is it? I'm so curious now.
so where my office
Yeah.
is in like a big office
Uh-huh.
block, and so a food truck turns up that people can buy
Oh,
their
cool.
breakfast from, but it plays a ice cream truck bell, so you know it's here. Great for everyone else, but there has been many a podcast episode that has been interrupted by that bell. So don't worry, avid listeners are well
Oh
aware
my God. I have not heard it yet on the podcast. That's funny.
of.
Wow. You need to go grab something, Josh. We can wait. Okay.
No, I don't. I'm fine. I'm more than fine.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, that's great. All the realities of technical work that involves recording and such like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If only they knew
I
I'm trying to
know.
record a
God.
podcast, they might.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember what you asked.
So what I said
Oh,
is,
when?
do you remember when you started thinking something's off here, or started to feel I guess like the negative, the pain of what you'd been doing?
Okay. So I hate to admit this, but it wasn't until I was 30, and I'm only 38 right now. So it was very recent in the grand scheme of things. Um, I was full on through my 20s following that narrative, trying to make my parents happy, doing the things that I knew were golden, which was I ended up adopting twice, ended up doing this missions work thing. I became a nurse, and then I became a, a doula, a labor doula, and a nutritional therapist. I became all of these things to help people. And in hindsight, it's like, wow, she really was trying to work something out there. But of course, in the middle of it, I'm just doing me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it. Um, but then around 30, the the socio-political climate in America really shifted. So that was about 8 years ago, 2015, 2016. That was 10 years ago. Wow, my math needs to be caught up. Um, it was so jarring for me to see issues that I had never questioned, issues that I had never really examined, and then what my family said we believe. It was basically like I could no longer follow the tenets and the beliefs that they were aligning themselves with because they were so egregious to me. They were so inflammatory and offensive, and I couldn't believe that that was who we were saying like um, we cared about, and the issues that we cared about. So essentially the larger broader system kind of showed up in our own family system. And just because I started asking questions, I wasn't even saying like, no, you're wrong. I just genuinely, for the first time in my life, had questions that were not answered by them, that couldn't be answered by them. And they could not tolerate the golden child doing that. The other kids did that. My brother was more of like the lost child, which is kind of the role that gets to do whatever and doesn't really rock the boat much. Whereas the scapegoat and golden child, they're much more like the scapegoat is the devalued one and the golden child is the idealized one, which are super common in narcissistic relationships to idealize one and then devalue another, or the same person, like love bombing and then the discard, that type of thing. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent. So I began to question things. I began to no longer offer my blind compliance and loyalty. And my family system really, really like red alert, 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 went on lockdown and tried to do everything they could to get me back into my space in the golden cage, doing the golden things.
Okay, what sort of, are you able to share what sort of questions you're
I
talking
mean, I can,
about? What sort
but
of things are the
it'll
questions?
probably piss off some of your listeners. So
Why will it piss my listeners off?
it's polarizing content, which you seem to not go run from.
Okay, well, let me do something for you, just in by way of comfort,
Sure.
right? To like, I don't know, I might be off on I might be on the complete wrong path
Mm,
here. I'm gonna give you a little bit of context about what happened with
okay.
me with the
Yeah.
church, right? Um, I got sober. I went to 12 steps
Yeah.
originally, right? So Alcoholics Anonymous. Got sober. I was sober about a year or so, and then maybe a little bit less time than that. And then I sort of wanted to find a deeper faith. I had opened up to the idea that there was a God,
Mm,
and I wanted to be, I didn't, to be honest with you, I was 24 years old and I wanted to find a bunch of people that didn't
yeah.
drink, right? Because that was all I knew. So I ended up at an evangelical
Okay.
church. Um, and I just went in there and was like, explain my story. I ended up on my knees praying with this guy. And I really cried. I did really cry, and it felt like I really felt
Yeah.
something. And I was like, wow, there's definitely something here. And then I started going to this church very regularly. I loved it, singing together and the sort of all the, the group stuff and the music and all of that. Um, and then very quickly I was lauded as they had me
Mm,
as I was saved by Jesus. Josh had a drink and drug
mm,
problem until he found Jesus and now he's been saved. And I always had there was a little bit of me that was a bit like that's kind of not how it went. I got sober a year before I came
right.
here, but you're all loving me,
Yeah.
and they would get me up at the front and they would all celebrate me. So I kind of liked it. Um, but I was very
Yeah.
explorative. So, and they found out I was reading a Buddhist
Mm,
book, but I didn't find out. I told them, I was like, I've read this book about Buddhism, and they were like, no, 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 you can't read that. And I was like, well, I just like it. I think there's some good stuff. And they were like, no, you can't do
yeah.
that. And then there was a couple of things, I started questioning things. There was like, they would say that the word of the Bible was just completely
Yeah.
true no matter what. And then I was like, and then I would pick stuff out. Then they started to not like that. And then I got into a relationship with a lovely human being
Mm,
who wasn't a Christian and they didn't like that. So then,
mhm.
so then I just stopped going because I just thought this is far too
Yeah.
restrictive for me. So that's my experience. I have absolutely no problem with the church as a result. Um I don't think Christianity is bad or anything, but it's clearly not
Yeah.
for me because I ask too many questions, right? And I like picking up an idea, thinking it's great, going down the rabbit hole and then finding another
Yeah.
rabbit hole, right? Is that what you're pointing to? Is
I
that
mean, it's
similar?
definitely similar because you would think a golden child wouldn't have that same kind of nebulous thing you're talking about in you. I also had that. Even to early on when we were in the Catholic Church, I remember saying, I was super little. I remember saying to my dad, why do we have to talk to the priests to talk to God? If it's God, can't God hear us without a priest? Which is not stuff you're supposed to ask in the Catholic Church. But he really loved my critical thinking and like my mind that wouldn't easily rest with simple platitudes and answers. So the problem is that way he taught me to think ended up biting him in the butt, because then I questioned the very system that I was a part of, that I was upholding, that he didn't want me to question. And so it ended up being around the lines of like Christian nationalism. It's really big in the States, where they basically want the country to be Christian and everyone to follow the Christian rules, and you know, be that restrictive nature, but in the whole country. And it really started coming strongly in that, in the, I don't know if you remember back that time, Black Lives Matter was a really big movement, and there had been a lot of murders that had happened that people were protesting about. And it was the first time in my life where I ever like even realized, this sounds so awful, but for me, it was the first time that I even heard the terms like white privilege or any of these realities I didn't know about. I was raised in a 99% white town, but I had already had adopted a Black child at the time. And I didn't even read, like the adoption agency gave us all this transracial adoption information to read. And I remember talking to our neighbor who was Kenyan and German, and I was just trying to get the answer I wanted, which was like the colorblind answer, like, oh no, love is all you need, like race isn't really a thing, which us white people tend to love. It's a much simpler model,
Yeah. Easier to
so much
navigate.
easier
Yeah.
to digest. And so I started thinking critically at that time about these issues. And those were the things I was trying to talk about. Like, but wait, what about our history? Like, what about this and that? And that was, I was basically told those are not things, you can't believe in like racial equality and racial justice if you're a Republican, and if you know, want to think like us. It's that group think model that's so rigid.
I think that's where what I don't know, it feels like what I'm hearing is a little bit like the golden child role starts to fall down when you start to get into real
Yeah.
life, and the compassionate loving part of you that's really
Mhm.
good for for being a golden child then starts to want to be the golden child for everyone,
Exactly.
and you can't, you simply can't be that, right? You can't, like, it's a good example that you give. You can't like be and do everything that the church wants you to do and support something else that looks after another group of people if it goes against the church.
Exactly.
That's where it starts to fall down, because I remember the critical question that really got the priest at the church that I
Mm,
was at. We were praying at the time. I don't even remember what it was, but we would like group
okay.
pray, and it was for Christians that were being murdered
Okay. Yeah.
somewhere, and we were praying for the Christians that were being murdered. And I went up to him afterwards and said, if we have the firm belief that collective praying works, but we also believe that when we die, if we're Christian, we go to the right place, surely we should be praying for the people that are killing the Christians, because if we could get them to be Christian,
Right.
right, then they wouldn't kill them. But also the ones that are dying, you said, are going to a better place anyway.
Wow.
And he told me that he thinks the devil's walking in me, right? So I was like, but I don't think I am. I think what I'm saying makes sense, right? So
Oh, that's perfect. That's a perfect example. Yeah, that was never going to work.
yeah, because one thing that I've realized about myself is that I have a lot of traits of the golden child in me. I've always been a little bit too loud and brash to allow that, but I
Mm,
have like, it's the kind of like niceness, people
yeah.
pleasing, wanting everybody to like
Yeah.
me. And I have experienced a lot of pain through my desire to be nice and to be loved by everybody, because when you try and love everybody in that way, you end up
Yep.
upsetting
Yep.
everybody, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly what happened. It was like the way, and this is one of the disillusioning parts of being the golden child, is the way that they raise you to be, like shape you like clay to be this empathetic, kind, curious person Then when you go do it for groups that they don't see as worthy of that, they have disdain for you and they despise that in you. But you're like, wait, didn't you want me to be this way? I thought this was what I was supposed to do. And that's the disillusionment for a lot of golden children is no,
Yeah,
no, that's not going to work here.
and that's where it becomes control,
That's
right?
right.
Because so what we're talking about here is the love for you was dependent, is that, well, tell me if I'm wrong here, ends up being that it's dependent upon you playing that role.
100% conditional. Yep.
So what then happened? You've started to wake up to
Yeah.
this, right? You started to be critical, started to, and you say that was like 10
Yeah.
years ago. But so this was before you went to Thailand as a missionary. What happened? Was there a bit of like, let's send her to Thailand and hope she goes and like, let's get her away from us? Was there a bit of that? Or were you going, maybe if I can get away from here, I can be a bit more free or what? How did that happen?
It's funny when we look at large decisions in our lives and the motivations we had on the surface for them, but then you like look back in hindsight and you're like, huh, why were you so okay moving away from everything? Why was that? Was there some like search of liberation in there? And I don't know, maybe there was. At that point, we had already we my gosh, missions is not something people do on a whim. We had prepared for 12 freaking years to do that shit. Like you have to go through
Wow.
so many hoops and get so many degrees and do so much stuff. Um, which whatever is its own thing, but we were already planning when we started questioning things and having conversations and sharing stuff to social media that people were like appalled by, that we were just literally just trying to understand the racial dynamics in our country better. That's all we were trying to do, and listening to people of color and trying to platform their voices instead of the voices that we had always heard about it. So no, we weren't pushed out into Thailand, but that was in motion. Then we ended up going. But sadly, we were, overseas really needing family support. And once this divide started, the icing out, like the stonewalling happened a lot. And my family, who I had talked to every single day up until then, stopped talking to me a lot. Really, there was a lot of like undercurrents of, if she would just shut the heck up, we could go back to normal. But like so many of us that can't do that, I couldn't do that. And we ended up doing mediation that I had asked for because I felt like I was losing them. I felt like the most important relationship.
Mediation between who?
Yeah,
Sorry, just
mediation between with me and my husband, and then between my mom and dad
so you and your husband
together.
together, and uh, and the mediation was for you two to speak to your mum and
Yeah.
dad. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
That was pretty useless. They were really defensive, really cold, really blaming, couldn't hear me. The things that I was trying to share was that I feel abandoned, like when I need you the most. And I thought you always loved me, but then as soon as I started changing just a little bit, you pull away from me completely relationally, and you're not here anymore for me. And I feel like we're going to lose our relationship forever. I feel betrayed by what I always thought was real and good and true, and you've just changed completely. All of those things they couldn't hear and they couldn't respond to, they couldn't attune to.
Can you just? I want to get really clear on
Yeah.
this, right? Can you just explain how you had changed? Like, if you could summarize
Okay.
exactly, you were like a really good conforming Christian in their
Yeah.
eyes, right? Through how they saw it, believed everything that they believed and did and everything that they
Yeah.
said, right? What changed? What changed in you? Because I want what I want people to understand is that this isn't like you started using drugs or you
Right.
would like,
Right.
right? How did you change?
If you want to just look at like on the surface, it was basically I went from a very conservative Christian to a more progressive thinking Christian. That's it. Underneath it, it's I woke the hell up and I started to wonder if this whole system that I had built my whole life upon, was as solid as I thought it was. But I wasn't even voicing those questions yet. Like my faith questions weren't even on the table yet until years later. I was scapegoated way before that. But to them,
So what were you doing? Yeah, what did it look like to them that was annoying them? What was annoying them? Just
it
questions.
was,
You were
yeah,
asking
it
questions.
was as simple as us trying to have some conversations about it and them telling me I was wrong and that my dad knows much more about history and he's studied politics and he knows these things and I need to get back in line. But largely, I think happens in a lot of relationships. It's kind of funny, but it's like the social media stage becomes the new public square. So I'm not out in the public square asking these questions and posting these articles, but I'm doing it on social media, and friends and family are seeing, oh, Lauren's kind of changing. Lauren's kind of, not towing the line anymore of what it is to be a conservative Christian. That was genuinely all that was happening. I don't know if that sounds like minimal or what, but that was what it was.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Well, no, no. Let me try and formulate what I'm saying. It does sound minimal, right? But that's what I wanted to get people to understand. I want people to understand that you went from being the golden child, right? Like held up in the highest regard
Highest.
out of all of your siblings, right? And because you evolved as a human
Right.
being and started to see the world slightly different, or started to view things, or perhaps even just question them, wasn't even sure if you viewed
Right.
them differently at this point, right? And you've had to have mediation from your parents to be able to speak to them. That's what I wanted to people to
Yeah.
understand,
You're
right?
not missing anything.
Um,
That's really what happened. That's it.
that should be that should be shocking to people.
Mm,
It should be
yeah.
shocking to people. Like I do think
Yeah.
that. So you had the mediation that wasn't working. They basically doubled down on you're wrong and all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Are you in Thailand by now?
So we're in Thailand. Yep. The mediation is done virtually. We go back to America to visit a couple years later. Everything's really, really weird between us. We can't talk about, basically in the mediation, we had decided, okay, we just won't talk about race and we won't talk about politics and we'll just pretend like nothing ever happened and we're all the same happy family. But unfortunately, in these systems, you're seen as one of us or you're seen as an outsider, right? It's that binary. And so I was already seen as their enemy. And I know this because I have 30 years of history beforehand of what they would do once they saw someone as the enemy. I know how they engaged. It's either you're in or you're out. And so I started feeling their cold iciness towards me. And I knew it was because they no longer felt like we were one. You can't have differences of opinion in these systems. You just cannot. You all think the same. You all do the same. You all believe the same. And if that varies even a little bit, it creates so much discomfort for the system that the only kind of adaptation they have is just to throw you out of it, even if you're their beloved child. It's that broken of a system, I guess. And so there was very little warmth between us for those couple of years, and then when we went back in 2020 we ended up getting stuck there because of COVID. This is kind of the climax. 2020 is just like the year from hell for us, as it was for so many other people, but we got stuck there. We couldn't get back to Thailand, and basically Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor were all murdered in that short period of time for over a couple months in the States. And these are Black individuals unjustly killed. And anyways, it kind of picked up another wave of that again. So I ended up just making posts and talking about their lives and how they mattered. And my dad, he was super involved on social media and politically, and he was posting all this other kind of stuff. So here comes the tension. Here comes the oh, we don't align. Let's all be reminded that Lauren's a crazy outsider. She's a liberal. She's this, she's that. And they stopped talking to me again. And this was in a time where we really, really needed them. And unfortunately, they could not be there for me.
Just because you had differing views to them. So were you living with them?
We were living with them for a time, but then we ended up going to another state to be with Luke's family and our church there and friends there. And we ended up being stuck in that state. We had someone offer a house to us, which was so generous. And we were there for months, almost a whole year. And we were going to go back to my parents' house, but they were so angry and so upset and didn't talk to us anymore that we definitely didn't go back to their house. The relationship ended with a letter. They were telling we were going to go see my brother. This is why I wrote the book because it's human relationships are so complicated and it's hard to, wrap it up and explain it. But one of the climactic things that happened was we were going to go see my brother and meet his new baby, and my mom had called him and told him that we weren't talking, and he contacted me and said, "You cannot come until mom's happy. Mom's crying on the phone with me. You need to freaking fix it." And unfortunately, he didn't have any understanding of what was going on in the larger context. He just saw, well, you're the golden child. You fix the problem. I don't want to deal with it. And not realizing I couldn't fix it. The only thing I could have done was to get back in line, shut my mouth, and recant from any of the things that I had questioned or thought up until that point. And I was unwilling to do that. But that was the only way that I would have been able to um, get them back on, to loving me, to seeing me as a human again. So long story short, I wrote them a letter because they had told my brother, "Oh, we don't know why she doesn't want to talk to us. She just wants to keep her kids from us." And these things, grandkids are often brought up a lot as like the thing that people are fighting over, like a divorce. It's terrible. But we weren't trying to keep the kids from them. We wanted things to reconcile. So I wrote the letter trying to do that, trying to show them where they had missed me and where I just needed their understanding and their support, even though I was an evolving person, even though I was changing, and basically how they had hurt me and how I needed them to love me differently in this new version of me. And that their relationship would always mean the world to me, and that I'd always prioritized it. It was always super important to me, and it always would be. And unfortunately, they wrote me back 2 weeks later a 4-page letter that was just a paragraph response to every paragraph I wrote. So it was like a rebuttal, no joke. Each thing I said, they just wrote a rebuttal in like red ink to say how wrong I was, how ungrateful I was, how I was never. This is the thing that happens. Sometimes they switch their narrative so quick, but they pretend like you were always the scapegoat. I wasn't. I was very, very clearly the golden child. Ask anyone who knew my family and knew of me. That was my role. But they would say these things in this letter like, "Oh, well, you've always been ungrateful. You've always been, what were the other words? Not difficult. You've always been disrespectful to us. And we've felt this way for a really long time." They'd only felt it for a few years when that all happened in 2015, when that all started. That was when they started feeling that way. Prior to then, I hadn't questioned them at all, and I was very much full on golden child. But for them to justify icing me out and no longer wanting a relationship and not willing to do the repair that was needed, they needed to have a characterization of me as much worse than I was, right? Because how do you just say, "Oh, I don't have a relationship with you anymore because you have some differing beliefs now"? You can't say that. That sounds ridiculous, like you said. So they made me seem like this monster, which often happens in abusive relationships where it's so much gaslighting and so much projection. Excuse me. And so that letter kind of put the nail in the coffin. I was completely dissociated for days after I read it. I felt so much grief and so much loss. And actually, 3 days within getting that letter where they just told me everything they thought about how terrible I was, I developed full body hives from head to toe, this really strong immune response. And I was getting really, really chronically ill, which is kind of another thread of the story. But I got much more sick at that time because my body could not handle the pain, the agony of really facing reality.
And I just want to reflect a couple of things back at you that I really had because I felt like a strong surge of emotion in the middle, particularly when you were like, "I care so much about this relationship. I just need you to love me, essentially who I
Yeah.
am, as who I am." And if you look at and I really want people to understand this because I feel like a lot of people that follow my stuff are maybe more likely to be scapegoat children. That may be a bit of a wild assumption from me. But I really want people to hear and understand the pressure of like when your brother contacts you and essentially says, we can all get on, this can all be fixed, stop
Yep.
being who you are and go back to being what you're supposed to be in this family. And that is the only resolution that a dysfunctional family can see. That it's not let's all sit down together and try and find a way back to one
Mhm.
another. It is this family works when you are the golden child. And so you have this horrible decision of like, do I be myself or do I go back to conforming and at least then I will feel a sense of
That's right.
love? And it's in this is what happens. Like I try and tell people this, in any abusive relationship, I think people, when people think of abuse, they think of somebody tied up, unable to free
Yeah.
themselves from the abuse. What happens is your life is built around the role that you play within that abuse. And in order for you to free yourself from the abuse, you have to
Mm.
you have to end life as you know it, right? So I just want to commend you for talking about it and
Mm.
just take a second to say I really hear you, and I really hear the pain that come with that. So let's, if we can, just talk a little bit about the hives and stuff and what preceded then, because obviously your body's then said
Mm-mm.
this is too
Yeah.
much. I can't do this
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. And I think that's what was happening. Like you're saying, coming to that point, that existential question of do I choose my authentic self or do I slide back in place and get the belonging that I've always had? And that's the thing I had that my scapegoat sister didn't have. She had authenticity at the expense of belonging. I had belonging at the expense of authenticity. And they both,
Oh shit, man, that's fucking so good. Well, not good, but deep. Sorry, yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's been a big realization for me. And both of them are needed. For any healthy relationship, we need belonging and we need authenticity. We can't have one or the other, or it's a super dysfunctional relationship. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. So sorry, the scapegoat the scapegoat gets
authenticity.
authenticity at the expense of belonging. The golden child gets belonging at the expense of
That's it.
authenticity. Wow.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I rudely
I
interrupted
love
you.
that. Finally, I got some language out of you. Come on, Josh. Yeah, that existential place is so incredibly painful. And I think that's where all my health issues just catapulted forward because it was like a brutal double bind. Neither one of them I could survive with, or I felt like I could survive with either one of them. I have this scene in the book where I'm like, in an allegorical way, I'm holding this dead body in my hands. I'm in a morgue. I'm in like in the corner. This was the imagery that came to me of being in a morgue and just holding this body and rocking this dead body, the body representing the relationships that meant the world to me. And I'm holding it and I cannot put the body down and let it die. Even though it's already gone, it's like I cannot pry my hands off of it. And that imagery is just such a felt sense of how difficult it was to walk away. Like people can mischaracterize those of us who have had to walk away from our family system so easily, but they don't have the slightest idea the deep guttural loss that it takes to actually acknowledge reality and to choose to live in that reality that this is not a life-giving, healthy, reciprocating relationship at all. And if I'm going to save myself, I have to leave. It's a survival. It's a choice of survival. And that's what I ended up doing. But my body, in the process of doing that, it wasn't this glamorous, like brave heart. Oh, I've got my shield of honor and I'm walking out bravely. It's like I'm dying while I'm letting you go. Like parts of me are dying because I am so devastated to lose the most important people in my life, and it was my whole family, my brother, sister, mom, dad, all estranged, because I wouldn't choose to get back in line. And that's the what fucking sucks about the golden child is you can't function in any other way in your family system if you're pinned as the golden child from the beginning, unless your family has an amazing turnaround and changes, you are not going to ever be able to be free outside of that role. You're never going to be able to you're never going to be able to leave that role and stay in your family system. And that's just the reality. It I didn't make it up. I just realized it and decided to do what I needed to do, that my life was important to me, and that finding out who my authentic self even was mattered. But it cost me so much, you know?
It's man, you've really sort of got to the sort of crux of what happens in a lot of estrangement, right? Which is the absolute weight as the golden child to have to make the choice to end your life as the person that you are, as you know it,
Yep.
is your only choice at stepping into who you are. Like it's one or the other. It's one or the
Yeah,
other.
really.
And that's horrendous because, like you say, and I get fucking people all the time online, you know, acting as if the walking away is the easy option, right?
Mm.
The easy option, if you want to talk about easy options, and actually I just think it's a fucking waste of time doing so.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about easy option, what you could have done is just thought, you know what? I, I'll just fall back in line and I'll have my
Yeah.
family, you know? And you didn't. And so physically you ended up where you were. You obviously went through like a long period of pain
Mhm.
and hurt. Something's obviously, well, I'm assuming something happened since then.
Mhm.
Like, how did you come through that? Yeah, what happened? Was there a moment or was it a long, grueling process?
Long, grueling process. Option
I knew that was going to be the answer, I think.
right. Darn it. Ah, why is it always the process? But it really is always the process. Yeah, I very slowly came back to life, and I attribute a lot of things to how that happened. One of them being the context of a loving relationship. My partner, my husband, is um, the antithesis of their kind of love, where they were strict and rigid and only saw me as a role. He sees me as this dynamic person and loves me accordingly. And that kind of love, I mean, we had already been together at this point for like 15 years. But he basically, like, if you think of a parent in the NICU, like spoon feeding their child back to life, that's how I picture what he did for me in this season. And I love to talk about it because I want people who are listening who maybe their partner's going through estrangement or has that dysfunctional family system. Your role is so incredibly powerful because without him, I didn't have another model of genuine healthy love. Like he was the one who showed it to me, and not because he came from the shiny background. He didn't. He has his own host of traumas and things that he's been working through, but what we shared was real and genuine, and his heart for me was real and genuine. So he basically gave me that corrective experience of relational safety and love, and that helped me slowly open, like if you picture a flower that's really tightly bound and then it slowly starts to unfurl and the leaves slowly start to open. Like that was what happened to me. I slowly started to feel safe in the world again, very, very slowly. Started moving my body. Doing like yoga and breath work has been huge for me to feel safe in this body because my body was where all the terror is held. The body is the landscape where all of this war happens in. And so I needed to find some little stepping stones of how to feel safe in my body again because my chronic symptoms were so crazy. I needed relief. And I did. I started to feel safe again. And I started to believe that I could have hope on the other side of estrangement. I remember we were hiking one time with the kids, which is there's a whole nother thread in the story that I'm not going to go into, but related to my kids and adoption and trauma. We had had a really hard time, and we were trying to find some joy and trying to find some connection without all this pain between us. And we went out on a hike, and I just remember being at the top of the mountain, top of the hill, and just feeling this sense of like, I can be okay in this world without parents. I can be okay in this world without parents. And it was the most craziest thought, but it hit me as such a reality, like a hopeful thing to step into, that maybe I don't need to, not my grief process. That's how I've been okay. The grief has allowed me the ability to live in this world without parents. But like maybe I don't have to be this broken person, half a person, without parents. Maybe I can have a full, meaningful life. And so little by little, through movement, through my dogs that were kind of like therapy dogs for me, through music, through my relationships, these things all started to heal me. And now, 5 years out from the climax of all the loss, I really do feel like I have tremendous meaning and purpose. And my grief is always with me, but I see it as they're hand in hand, like life and beauty and grief and loss. I feel like I can't pick one or the other. They're both equally as true. And so I walk and I tend to both of them. And it's opened up the door for me to actually have a life again. I mean, this could have ended me. It was so painful. It was so traumatic.
Yeah. I think it would end a lot of people. I think a lot of people would probably just end back in the system, in the family system as the golden child
Yeah.
again. I think that's what a lot of, when things blew up, when your brother called you, or if not then when the letter came back, it would have been like, well, like society says to you to be, I'll be the bigger person
Yep.
and I'll put myself on the back burner in order to have that relationship and you didn't, you took the road less traveled, I guess, in that
Yep.
respect. There's a question that's burning me. Where is your faith at now?
Oh man, he's gonna go for that question.
I can't because I can't work out if you're still a
Yeah,
Christian or
yeah.
what, or if you've
No,
like.
I don't mind it at all. I don't consider myself a Christian anymore. No. I I have a little bit more complicated feelings with Christianity than maybe you have with your shorter stint in the in the game. I've got a lot of religious abuse, religious trauma in my body, in my spirit, that I've experienced my whole life being in that system, and internalizing those realities. But I generally believe that high control religion. So there's religion that's not high control. Buddhism is a great example. But also, there are some versions of Christianity that really are genuinely like, we just want to be good people on this earth and be light and love to people. And we practice our traditions, but we don't hate people. Like that version of Christianity is very different than what I was brought up in. And so I don't have any bad feelings about Christianity or, other religions that aren't high control. But when it becomes high control, it's a system of coercive control. And so I don't feel good about anyone being in systems like that, regardless of if they're dressed up with religious words or not. And my faith now is just much more of like it's kind of the opposite of what it always was. It was always built on the solid rock of certainty. We've got the answers. We know how it works. We're going to tell you. And now it's like, oh, I'm over here in this world of mystery and of wonder and of like, I'm not sure. I hope that there is a divine, and I'm not exactly sure what they're like and how to engage with them, but I'm open to there being something higher than all just us being biology.
Yeah, I like that. It's very inclusive,
Mhm.
balanced sort of answer
Yeah.
in that, like, I believe this, right? And I don't have religious trauma. Like, I don't have religious
Okay.
trauma. I did that. I did what I did in the church, right? But um, I every I would say like spiritual text I've read from the Bible. I've read lots on Buddhism. I really resonate with a lot from Hinduism when I did a lot of like reading on that as well. I think they're all rooted in amazing belief systems. It's when they're taken and then
Yeah,
used to control people, that's when it's a
that's right.
problem, right? That's what we're talking about. And then so I'm very much like you, and I'm like I believed something's going on, and I actually reached a place where I love the mysticism of
Mm,
it more than
yeah.
anything. I love not knowing.
Mm,
And what I would say is I have had rigid ideas of God in my life before. When I first got sober in the 12 steps, that is a spiritual based
right.
program where you're supposed to find a spiritual
Mm,
awakening. And then when I um the moments that I have had a real clear and rigid understanding of a
yeah.
God, when I look back retrospectively, they are the times where I was most lost. And so I became very rigid in my thinking because that gave me something to anchor
Yeah.
to. The more that I free myself, the more I am just okay with everybody's idea of it. And I'm more like, let me hear your idea. Let's have a go. I'm more like that now. I'm more like, let's have a go. Let me have a go on that. Tell me, share with me, and let me try it. Let me see. Um, because I think that rigidity that you're talking about, that high control, is a clear sign of dysfunction,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's a clear sign of an inability to be with truth, reality.
Right. I put a quote actually by Karl Marx, which I would be in so much trouble doing because, he's a communist, socialist. But this quote is so great about what he said. Religion is the opium of the people. And
Mm.
I think there's so much truth to sometimes when we cannot face our pain and the reality of our emotional selves, we use the dogma of religion to shoot us up and numb us out because it's just too hard to be human. And if we don't have the skill sets and we don't have the um, openness and the space and the safety to figure out how to be human without opium or religion, um, yeah, like I just echo what you're saying completely that the most unhealthy versions of you created the most dogmatic God. And yeah,
Yeah, it's the same, isn't it? It's like, the quote, religion is the nation's opium. It's like dogma is that as well, isn't it? Right? If I create something rigid, I can hang my hat on it, and it doesn't matter how bad I feel. I can just be like, oh, I'm got the devil in me at the moment. That's just what that is. Do you know what I mean? Rather than
yeah,
accountability, I could go devil, or rather than a difficult conversation with the priest that I tried to have years
yes.
back. He just said, oh, the devil's working for you at the moment.
And
Get rid of
you
that and you'll be all right.
bring that up like in your field of people doing that through spirituality, like through more of Eastern religious spirituality, like spiritual bypassing and how you think you're spiritual because you talk. One of your reels was cracking me up. Talk a certain way and you act a certain way and you act like you have such control of your emotions and everything. Like you can do that through any kind of dogma. You can use it as your opium. Um,
Yeah,
anything,
yeah, yeah. And I know that because most of the videos that I make, I'm taking the piss out of a version of myself that has existed
right?
before. Because when I started going to church every week, I started talking like that, and I would say that that I did because of that. That's what I was doing, right? So like I understand how that comes about, and I think that dogma starts to happen
Yeah.
everywhere. Like it happens in spirituality. You see it now, like in the sort of because retreats are massive now, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's been on a retreat and it saved their life. And then the retreats become dogmatic because you'll hear people that they're like, well, they did a retreat and they did that there, so that's not a proper retreat. And
Oh,
you're like, what? Who gets to fucking like? Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So then dogma just that kind of dogmatic approach happens everywhere, and it's often born out of us. There's a lot of like one-upping that goes on as
Mhm.
well, isn't it? Someone's always doing healing. just healing
Yeah.
better, like, because I'd done ayahuasca and then someone's done ayahuasca 7 times, and then yeah, but I did it with a shaman who knew the first person to ever do ayahuasca in Peru. Do you know what I mean? And it gets like that, and then it just gets like
Uh,
yeah, people get lost in that stuff.
yes.
So are you okay for time, by the way? Because I
Yep, I'm
realize
great.
good. I just want to talk. I want to talk a little bit about the book. When did you start writing the
I
book?
started about 3 years ago and I was reading memoir. I love memoirs. I was just reading so many. Oh, that was another part of my healing. Other people's stories of surviving and of being scapegoated. It was like I couldn't get enough of them. So through music, through movies, through documentaries, through books, I just was voraciously consuming stuff to try and find like myself in them. There's a really cool quote about um, stories being a mirror or a window. So they're a window into the house of someone else that we don't know, like a story that we're not familiar with personally, and we can learn from and expand ourselves that way. Or it's a mirror. We read the story and we see ourselves in the story, and that's how we grow. And I just think that's so true. So I was reading all these books and I was like, oh my God, I would love to write my story somehow. Like I know that there's people being scapegoated left and right. I want to be a voice. And a lot of people can't share their stories because maybe they're not fully estranged, or it's really hard writing about family shit. Like, I only could do it because I'm very confident that my family will not be coming back to me. And that was part of my grief, obviously, but also like, well, then I guess I can write about this. Obviously, I've changed names and all of that, but among the people that read it that know who they are, whatever, that's the reality. So yeah, I started it 3 years ago, and I took 3 years writing every single weekend for,
Oh,
it was like my part-time job. I got three different coaches and editors, and I've just been like pouring my whole world into this story, which has been shaping me. Like understanding your story at this level is such a privilege. And I don't take it lightly. I don't take it for granted. Like the investment of time and money that we've put into it is a gift for other people, but it's also a gift for me because I've got to comb through like every single scene of my life that I remember and try to like create a solid narrative from that, which is so illuminating. I mean, I would be up in the middle of the night, like light bulb, light bulb, light bulb, light bulb. It was crazy, like the Beautiful Mind movie where you're making all the connection points. And so it's helped my healing like in a huge way. And not everyone can do it, but we can all tell our story, in different ways.
yeah, yeah. Who is the book for? Who should read the book?
Golden Child. Oh, by the way, the subtitle is My Descent to Scapegoat and Rise to Freedom. Um, The book is for those who have had to genuinely consider if it's more painful with their parents in their life or with their parents outside of their life. For those who have had to actually consider that most horrible, gut wrenching, painstaking question. Um, I think people who were OG scapegoats will also resonate. A lot of us became the scapegoat, but then some of us were born into that role pretty much and were scapegoated all along. About half the book is about me being scapegoated. Maybe the first third is about what it was like to be the golden child and how they set me up for that. And then the rest of it is my scapegoating process. So it's really for those people, like we were talking about earlier, who have had to decide, do I walk away and find my authentic self? Whether that be from a marriage, whether that be from your parents, uh, workplace, religion. Like there's the leaving theme is really strong in it, of leaving to find yourself.
Yeah, but the first third of it is written about your life as a golden child
Yeah,
as
it
well, right?
is. Yep.
Because I feel like um, it would be good for people to read that have woken up and have siblings that are
Yeah.
left in the system as well, to try and get an understanding of, because when I hear your story, not that, when I hear your story, that moment where you walked
Yeah.
away, you can see how many people end up trapped in the system and don't walk
Yep.
away. And so if you are already the scapegoat and you're sort of awake and you have hard fractured relationship with a
Right.
sibling that you feel like is the golden child, like hearing, because it's very easy, I think, for people to feel really negatively towards the golden child, right? If
I
you look at
get
my
it.
comments on if I look at my comments on social media,
Yeah.
if you ever talk about the hero child, there are some scapegoats that turn up like fuck the hero child, and for a little bit of balance as well, many hero children go on to be
Narcissistic.
to
Yeah.
narcissism following the pattern,
Yeah.
right? So it's nice to hear, but I actually think that it's less than people. I think a lot of people have an assumption that nearly all of
Yeah,
them
I think
do,
so.
and I don't necessarily believe that's the case. I think there's a large proportion of them actually that end up just trapped in the
Mhm.
system, wishing they weren't, but not knowing,
Yeah,
not feeling like they have the strength and the courage to leave to find themselves.
absolutely. And a part that I didn't mention, which actually I've been reading about this and observing in the last several years, there's this very real phenomena of trading roles. So I actually became the scapegoat, and my sister became the golden child. So the person that I described earlier, that was the scapegoat for 30 years, she is now basking in my previous golden aura. Like it's her now, because when you lose the systems are all about the roles just being filled. They don't give a damn who's filling them. So you'll notice that trend among people, kids in dysfunctional family systems, is they sometimes swap. And sometimes they swap frequently. Like whoever's doing better in the family, oh, they're the golden child that year. And then if someone gets a job raise or whatever, has the baby, then they're the golden child. It's super messy how it works. But the important thing to remember is that all of those roles are damaging to people. None of them allow you to have belonging and authenticity together and to really be who you are, an individuated person with autonomy in the family system. None of them allow that completely. But yeah, there's a lot of animosity, especially online. I see it between like hating the golden child. And I get it. I get it. I definitely didn't have as much pain in my childhood as my scapegoat sibling. Absolutely 1,000%. I got so many benefits of attachment and so many little, I call them like goodies of attachment because I was the golden child. And they actually shaped me in really positive ways too. So I did get things that a scapegoat never gets. And even trauma wise, like I don't think I have CPTSD, which most scapegoats would have CPTSD from constantly being seen as the bad one. And I didn't have that. And that's just something that, thankfully, because I didn't have that, I had the strength. It's kind of ironic. The very thing that I was raised in gave me the strength to leave that system. So, like, the system gave me the sense of self and all of these things that attachment gave me, which ultimately helped me walk out of that very system. So, it's all kind of irony and can really make your head spin. But the important thing to remember is there is no good role in a dysfunctional family system.
Yeah, and I think when you get into the realms of
Yeah.
comparing, like the pain, you're comparing apples and pears. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just two different
That's
things,
right.
because I go back to what you said one has to give up authenticity for a sense of
That's right.
belonging, and one gives up belonging for a sense of
Yeah.
authenticity. And I think you could probably argue it depends on what day or what scenario you're in to which one of those is going to be the most painful as a child. You know what I mean? So like I think that there's a lot to be said about that. And I think you make that swapping that you've talked about, when the golden child um evacuates the golden chair for whatever reason, there's a big shiny golden chair for someone to go and sit in, right? And I think that in early years, as well within these families, when nobody is fully taking claim of the golden chair, there's a lot of jumping in it, seeing how long you can sit in it, and then jumping out of it. And that is how, like, I think with real high level toxic parents, they they almost like nurture and force someone into it because they make the seat so
Mhm.
irresistible
Oh, yeah.
that someone will abandon themselves and go and sit in it and become the proof that um the scapegoat is
Yeah.
crazy, you know, and it's the scapegoat that's the issue. And you look at that like it's fascinating, isn't it, that you can switch roles like that and someone could just jump in the sea and then the same people that were saying they're the crazy one and you're the great one just go, oh look, like it's crazy that she's crazy now and this one's the amazing one. It's incredible that I find it fascinating that people can't see
Yeah.
it, right? But the reality is I exist in an echo chamber of people that can see
Right.
it now.
We do.
So you know what I mean? So I have to remember that actually, and that's how I always try and approach the podcast is like to remember that so many people don't see what feels like glaringly obvious
Yeah,
patterns, you
that's
know?
right. Mm.
This has been incredible. Before we just finish by talking exactly about the book, because I'm super excited that we will be releasing this episode on the day that the book comes
So cool.
out, um, which is pretty amazing. That sort of just fell that way. I know we kind of said
Kind
that it
of.
was coming out in September, so let's try and set it up so that that happens. But um, it certainly hasn't come from my organizational skills. So I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that for nothing. It's come from. We can call it divine, but if we
Right.
want, but it's certainly not my organizational skills. Well, if people want to, aside from the book, if people did want to work with you now, I know you mentioned right at the beginning that you know what you do is global. If people wanted to work with you now, how would they go about that?
Yeah, we're on social media, Instagram and Facebook, flourish_therapy. Also, our website is called flourishtherapy.co. And we do work with people. And I'm planning, my husband sees people, it just depends on what the issues are. I'm a mind body practitioner. He's got his master's in clinical counseling. But I'm starting in the beginning of the year. I'm really hoping to finish off a program that I'm working on to work with people who are estranged and to do some coaching around that. Because this story isn't for nothing, and I'd love to support people in that space. So, yeah, I would love if you guys are interested in our work to give us a follow and see what we're all about. We love what we do.
Yeah, yeah, I think that shines through as well. And the book, by the time this is released, it will be available. So where do people find
Yeah,
it?
you can get the book on Amazon. I ended up doing an audiobook too, which was a crazy experience to read the whole book straight through. But you can get it in paperback, Audible, or audiobook or ebook. And I have been getting incredible feedback so far. It's actually been hard to read all of feedback because it's so humbling. Like the whole time I'm like, do I even know how to write? Like, what am I doing? It's just such a vulnerable process. But the feedback so far, I've had a bunch of pre-readers who read it like beforehand, and people have been amazing. So I feel very encouraged that it's a good solid narrative and that it's a worthwhile read for anyone in this dysfunctional family world realm who would be interested.
Well, obviously, I've had access to like a pre-copy of it, right? So before this, I've not read it, but I was able to like look for it. But I'm not just saying this. I promise I'm not just saying this because I don't have to say it. I don't say things unless I need to. That's not true. I often do, but I'm not now. I'm not now. This podcast has really made me want to read the book.
That's
Actually, has
awesome.
really made me. It genuinely has, man. Like genuinely
Well,
has. So I will get myself a hard copy when it
yeah,
comes
that'd be
out.
great.
Um, the audiobook, you're
Oh,
reading
it's
it?
me. It's me all the way, all through the mistakes and the crying and the having to stop and re-record because I'm crying. And yeah, it's me. No crying in the recording.
It's
Promise. It's nice and crisp and clean.
it's a hard process, isn't it? Like I didn't realize
Right?
how hard it would be when I did
It's
mine.
intense.
And mine's not even really much my own story, you know.
Mhm.
So,
It's so intense. Yeah.
how long did it take you to record?
It was supposed to take 2 weeks, but again, golden child, overachiever over here, those tendencies don't go away completely. I did it in like 6 days, 18 hours, 6 days. Yeah.
Wow, they made me. I say they made me. That I just did as I was told, but it was two
What?
days. I did mine.
How many hours?
Two eight
Oh
hour
my.
2 8 hour days. Just sat reading.
Wow, that's
I
intense.
I had such a bad headache both days. I'm
Oh,
telling you.
that sounds really awful. Yeah, I guess you didn't have much of a choice. You just did what you had to do.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, listen, I am definitely going to get the book, so I can't wait to get it. This, honestly, I've like so enjoyed
Mm,
this
thanks.
podcast. And I think it's probably a conversation that I've not been able to have, which is like directly through the eyes
Mm,
of the golden child, you
yeah,
know?
it's a unique
So
perspective. I'm glad for your
yeah,
audience to have it.
me
Mm,
too. Me too. And thank you. Good for you in everything that you're doing. I'm sure we'll keep in touch
yeah.
now. And yeah, I can't wait to hear what people think of the book and think of this episode. So, anything you want to say to close us?
I'm just super thankful. This felt really comfortable, and I'm passionate about people understanding stories that maybe they might not naturally understand. So I love how you were able to really see the uniqueness of, not uniqueness of it's not common. I'm understanding that golden children are way more common than I thought initially, but just like the easily misunderstood story. And I love how you always bring that to light through your work, because to be a healthy human collective, like we need to understand these stories. We've got to, if we're going to break these cycles and not keep doing them with our own kids. So
Mm,
I'm really glad to share. Thank you
yeah.
for the chance.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to putting this out and reading the book.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. I did tell you it would be dysfunctional. So thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.